Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. I have a rather interesting conspiracy theory for you that I don't believe anybody else has been talking about. And it goes right along with the comments that I have made previously about how sarcasm has been destroyed. Because reality is way stranger and more bizarre and therefore more sarcastic than any kind of sarcastic commentary that you can make about it. And this conspiracy involves the denial of us of actual comedy and humor, a way for us to laugh and be able to deal with some of the things in life with humor. Now, the most famous case of this, of course, is Dave Chappelle, if you remember him. Now, I, for one, thought that Dave Chappelle was extremely funny and absolutely loved his work, whether it was stand-up or his TV show on Comedy Central. And you might recall that after he landed a huge contract, something on the order of $150 million to continue his show on Comedy Central, he suddenly just left the show, made a trip to Africa, came back. He did like maybe 1 or 2 interviews, very short ones, didn't really talk about the whys and wherefores of his actions, and basically went into complete obscurity. And he has no presence on the web. He does not do stand-up. I do not and am not aware of any time that he has done any comedy after that. And when I look also at some other instances of people that I have found to be extremely funny, it seems as though they have either died or are no longer funny. Chris Farley is another example, dead. John Candy, dead. Phil Hartman, murdered. Even Randy Quaid could be quite funny. And he is part of this whole Star Whackers thing. I want you to actually think about this, because this is a way of shaping society. If we do not have actual real comedians, people who can make us laugh, and people who can consistently do so, how are we going to have a proper release from the tensions and stress of everyday life? I know it seems like a really bizarre thing to even bring this up, but I mentioned this the other day on my radio show with Ken Thomas. The idea that we are deliberately being denied very funny people. Now, Will Ferrell is a very interesting case in point. Here is a man who can be extremely funny. He was extremely funny on Saturday Night Live, and some of his movies have been very good, but others have been absolutely terrible. Now, it's my contention that rather than face the total obscuration of his career, or be put out to pasture by whatever means, he has deliberately accepted scripts that are awful, so that occasionally he will put out terrible material. And that way he will be viewed as inconsistently funny, and therefore not a target for elimination. Now, I say this somewhat with my tongue in my cheek, but at the same time, I cannot deny the fact that some of the funniest people that we have had, some of the hardest hitting, some of the most satirical, and some of the most sarcastic comics that we have had that were really able to make me laugh and really able to let me let go of the stress of the day and really enjoy a good laugh have been taken from us, whether by death or by other means. And the Dave Chappelle case is probably the best example of this conspiracy. Why did he do what he did? What is the motivation behind it? And why is he now in virtual hiding? He was an absolutely magnificent comic, and now he is absolutely nowhere to be found. You know that he signed up for Twitter for about 3 weeks and then went offline there as well. It's a very interesting case, and it made me look at this in a broader perspective. Now understand that I'm not especially advocating that there is an active conspiracy to do this, but one has to wonder. It could also be that society has been changed so much that the pressures that real comics make, really funny ones make, the pressures that they face are greater and different than they have ever been. And let's face it, with sarcasm dead, a lot of their comedy is not going to be that funny anymore. Because if you make fun of Romney walking around in a clown suit, honking his fucking red nose, sticking his big fucking feet in his mouth, that's actually what really goes on. So it's not necessarily funny, just an observation on fucking reality. So that is also an explanation for what could be going on here. But is there a war on comedy? Is there a war on laughter? Is there a war on the release that we get from laughing and from comedy, so that we may be able to relieve some of the stresses that come upon us every day by a society that is encroaching more and more on us with globalism and multinational corporate domination of this entire fucking world? And of course, the economic collapse. I, for one, appreciate comedy in all of its forms as a way to find release from the stress of everyday life. And if we are being denied this, it is a war against our consciousness on another level. Now, I have done a video before about the war on consciousness, but I did not mention the war on laughter, the war on comedy, the war to deny us actually really funny people so that we might have some joy in our life. I really urge you to look at this because it is a very interesting and fascinating phenomenon. And maybe it's just a matter of society being the way it is. Maybe it's a string of unconnected coincidences. But maybe it's something else. Thank you. Good day.